Okay, when you first open Revit, this is what it looks like, and you've got the choice basically of starting particular types of projects like a construction or an architectural and so on, or you can open existing projects. So I'm going to open this existing project first of all, just to show you what it looks like. So here we have our opening screen, and you'll see first of all across the top, right at the very top here, we've got our smart icons. There's a lot of shortcuts to things that we use very often, and you can type in here and you can search for things and so on. Across the next band down, you've got your tabs. So these tabs, very much like you find in the Office products, give you a whole range of different choices, and you'll find with those that sometimes they're greyed out, so some things can't be used in particular views, and the things that you can use are highlighted. On the left hand side, very much like Inventor, we've got a browser window. Now this basically allows me to look at different views of my work. So at the moment I'm on this one, which is highlighted in black, is the ground floor. So I'm looking from above at a kind of plan view of my drawing. Now if I roll my mouse button, you can see that that basically zooms in. If I hold down my mouse roll button and drag, then I can move around the screen with it, and you can see that this is basically starting to look like a building. So I've got some walls and I've got some objects put in there. These objects are actually tables and chairs that I've brought in. This is a kitchen area, and there's various things on there. And you can see when I hover my mouse over them, they go blue. Now if I click on any of these things, so I'll click on this one here, and you'll see that my properties window here, now this other tab over here, changes. So this shows me the properties, and you don't need to understand what they all are now, but it shows me the properties for any particular object. Here's a toilet. If I click on my toilet, it shows me a 3D view of it. It tells me it comes in plumbing fixtures, and there's some information there later on I can change if I want to about how that thing is placed. You'll also notice in some places I've got dimension lines put in there. And again, all of these things I'll show you later on how we add these things, but for the moment I just want you to get an impression of how this works. Okay, so coming back to our browser window, I've got lots of options here as to how I look at my work. Now there are some things in here that I've made myself, but when you first open yours you'll get a whole bunch of things. These things here like legends and schedules and families and stuff like that. You don't need to understand what those things are at the moment. Most of them at this point will be empty, but sometimes as you create things, as you put things into your drawing, these things start to fill up. So what I will do is I'll show you what's called the elevations view. So at the moment, as I said, we're in the ground floor, we're in a floor plan. So we're looking from above, and these things can all be folded up, and I'm going to go here to my elevations, and if I click on my east elevation, basically that's what my building looks like if I looked from the eastern view. If I change to the north, I see the north view, and so on. So it's the four sides of my building, or the four possible views of my building. And those are used by architects because quite often they're interested in where the sun shines. So people want their houses positioned in a particular way, so they need to know which way is north, south, east and west. The other thing to notice on here is what's called the levels that we've got here. So I've got one called ground floor, and I've also got one called level 1. Now in architectural terms, the architect needs to know how many levels there are and what the height difference is between them. This is a very, very simple model. It's only got the ground floor, and I've added level 1. And for me, level 1 is basically the height of that first ground floor area. Now I could have as many levels as I wanted to. This could be a skyscraper with 30 floors on it, in which case I would have all these extra levels going up above. In the same way, I can still zoom in if I need to see any more detail. So you can see when I come in a bit closer now, and again if I drag with my mouse button, I can see that I've got a brick effect on there. And these things can all be changed later on. But it's important to understand what they are. And even the levels themselves, you can see it says 2800. That means that my level, my ground floor to my level 1, is 2.8 meters or 2800 centimeters high. And we can change those. If I drag this and dragged upwards or dragged downwards or even typed in here, I can change that number. Okay, so we've seen that there's different views that we can have here. Now section views, we haven't done them yet. A section view is when you take a line that goes through a building, so it looks like you've cut it in half, so you can see what the wall thicknesses look like and so on. And there's also 3D views and ceiling plans. Now we haven't bothered with a ceiling plan in this example one, but we can plan what a ceiling looks like as well, and that's where they will end up in there. Now at the moment we've only got a ground floor and a level 1 ceiling plan because they're the only 2 levels we've actually created. If I created some more levels, automatically I would get ceiling plans for them. The other thing to mention here is dimension lines. Now dimension lines can be added later on to actually show the dimensions, but the things themselves have been made to a certain size when I first created this outline view. And again, all of these things I will show you how to do at a later date. But at this point I think it's worth showing you what the 3D view looks like. Now the quickest and easiest way to see a 3D view is to come up here and you click on this default 3D view. There it is. Now there's various types of rendering has gone on here. You can see, for instance, I've got shadows turned on and shading and things like that. Now later on we will be able to change the wall colours, the wall types, the shading, where the sun is coming from. So we can do lots of things to make our building look different. But it's also worth noting at this point that we've got this cube up here, and this cube is the same thing as you've came across when you used Inventor. It's all to do with the view. So one thing you can do in this that you can't do in Home Styler is you can actually revolve, and you can look on different angles. So it's not just a question of spinning it around. We can flick through on here and come to different viewpoints on it and move it around this way, looking at it from underneath and so on. But we can also, if I hold down my shift button at the same time as I hold down my mouse scroll button, I can actually scroll and move in a whole range of different views. Now if I go to this position, you can see I've got a kitchen in here, and if I roll my mouse I can zoom right into my kitchen, which is pretty cool. I can move it around and I can look at it, and even in this view, if I want to rotate it around more, I can. Now one of the perfect things in here, one of the things that works really well, I'll go back to my ground floor view, is I can actually place in here what's called cameras. So at any point I can decide to take a picture and from that picture create a 3D view. So if I actually go to my 3D views, these are some of the ones that I've already created. So if I go into my kitchen, this is what my 3D picture looks like. And even inside this 3D picture, if I hold down Shift and roll my mouse, oops, you can see I went right the way over then, I can move around. So I can see through that hatch window part of the other room. I'm changing the direction of where I'm looking from. I've got a few other ones here. That's a view of the kitchen from the other way around, so I can see the doors. And the same thing, I can move all these things around. I can move it on the screen here, or I can hold down Shift and I can move the angle of it that I'm looking from. So I can create as many of these different kind of views, perspectives as I want to suit my purpose, which is going to be later on printing off to go into my portfolio. There's one more I've done just to show you. It's a view in the toilet area now, so the sink's outside where the toilets are. So you can get a feel for how something looks in 3 dimensions, not only from outside and above, but from inside as well. So it allows you to see a little bit more of what the sinks might look like and so on.